Listen, Brandon here. So glad to see you again. I hope you are watching. I'm here today to encourage you, to ask you to go to YouTube, like our page, subscribe, because one of the reasons we were down, that we didn't put out any podcasts towards the end of last year, is because we were busy working. We were busy working on our new space that I'm sitting in, I'm so proud of. And the only way you can see it is if you go to YouTube. So make sure you go to our YouTube page. It's Dear White Teacher. Like it, subscribe to it, because I know many of you love riding in your car, listening to the podcast, but every blue moon you might want to see us on YouTube so you can see our new space, so you can see our new stage. We put a lot of time and effort into it. It's something that's going to be used by our community. We're going to be teaching kids how to use podcast recording and music production technology, and so we're so proud of it. So make sure you go to our YouTube. We want to get as many subscribers as possible, so help us out. Go over there, subscribe. Dear White Teacher, thank you so much, and thank you for not only listening but watching. Peace.
It's not gonna take a book. It's gonna take experience.
There's no code switching. I'm gonna give it to you real. I need you to understand this is what our culture deals with. This is what it's like.
Y'all hold y'all colleague accountable. Y'all put the pressure where they know not in our building, you ain't gonna underserve our kids.
They wasn't prepared to teach urban students.
You got third, fourth grade kid walking in. He's walking in the class like, I don't trust this cat. I don't trust this woman.
Now, me being the person that I am, I went to the student.
Yeah.
You need to go to the spaces where they dwell in.
A teacher should have that same mindset.
Right.
Do no harm and promote life.
Go talk to him. Go talk to a kid you don't know every day for a month and tell me you don't feel better about coming to school here.
He was like, that's the first time I've felt seen in a classroom.
You have to recognize who your audience is, who you're teaching. Even that includes the whole family.
We don't just impact for the moment, we impact for eternity.
This is where you get the ins and the outs about the community.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Dear White Teacher, man. It's your host here, Brandon, and I'm here today with a very special guest, man. Today's gonna be kind of cool. I thought that one of the things I needed to do was to share with our audience and to share with our listeners kind of who I am, some insight. One thing that I felt like we had never done was just kind of have a conversation about who I am, what I do, what kind of even qualifies me to do this work. And so we didn't have a guest slated for this week. And so y'all might always hear me talk about Gabe. It's just me and Gabe here today. So me and Gabe gonna rap and talk, and we just gonna talk about the vision of Dear White Teacher, where we want it to go, where it's been, all that kind of stuff, and give you some insight to like who I am, what I do, and how we got here. And so everybody welcome Gabe to the show.
What's going on, man? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. So Gabe is not on camera.
Nah.
So if you're watching this, don't pull it up thinking you're going to see him, because that's not what he does. But Gabe has been rocking with me since day one. And I love Gabe, not only for his gift, but he believes in what we're doing and in the work that we're trying to accomplish. And so, man, let me say publicly, I appreciate you, man, and thank you for all that you've done, and that you bring your gift to the show, man. So Gabe is our video guy. He edits and records all this and tells me what equipment to buy so we can make it look good and all that stuff. So Gabe is the mastermind behind what you see in here. So, y'all give it up for Gabe.
Hey, man, I really appreciate that.
Yes,
I rock
sir.
with you too, man. I love you, dog.
Man, I appreciate it, man. I love you too, man. So we got a bunch of questions. We just go, man, talk back and forth. And, you kind of know the answers to some of them, but, let's tell the people what's going on.
Right. So let's first start off with off top.
Okay.
The easy question is, who is Brandon? But let's dive deep in what's your background in? Where did this love for all of this come in? Just tell me origins, early on stuff. Who is Brandon?
Man, I think let me start with the love for just even community work. And so my father was a pastor in a little city called Alliance, Ohio. And, man, if you go to Alliance right now and say my dad's name, he is a legend. Alliance is a very small town, maybe 25, 30,000 people, but he was very community oriented. And so even though he was a pastor, he's retired now, but even though he was a pastor, he was very committed to doing work outside the four walls of the church. And so my dad's, focus was people struggling and dealing with addiction. And so, man, I watched my dad, you know, feed the hungry and clothe people. And, you know, that was kind of like our family ministry. And, you know, I didn't know what I was necessarily looking at as a kid. You know, I was getting drugged at church and you know, we never moved to Alliance. We live in Akron, Ohio, which is probably about a 50-minute ride there. But my life routine when I got out of school was we hopped in the car, drove to Alliance. You know, my parents did their work, came home, went to bed, did it all over again the next day. And so, man, my father was a very successful pastor / community organizer / man, just a man for the people. And I watched him give of his heart, you know, and his time and of his being to a lot. I had to share my dad with a lot of people growing up, which, you know, I never realized until I got to where I am now, that I didn't really realize how much I was paying attention to what he was doing. Mm-hmm. And then now here I am, man, literally doing the same things with a little different focus area. Like my area is kids and education and that kind of thing. But it's man, I'm literally walking in my dad's footsteps.
Yeah. Tell me, what character traits do you see as you are here serving the community while you're, like you said, you do different things, but you still see a whole lot of all of that starting from your childhood. But is there any like specific traits that of your dad that you even see in yourself while you do stuff?
Selflessness, man. Mm-hmm. Which is crazy because when you're selfless, to those close to you, sometimes it feels selfish. Mm-hmm. Because you're giving so much to others. And so it's a weird balance. It's a weird tension almost, because I've fought that battle of giving so much of myself to others and then not always prioritizing those close to me who want my presence and want my attention and deserve it and should have it. And so that's a lesson I've learned here, you know, in the last few years, how to, you know, try and balance and be aware of how much of what you give where. But my pops is super selfless, man, super giving, resourceful. You know, I just watched him, and this is before like this social media age where everybody wants to show how they give back or show off what they're doing. You know, one story is my dad had this place called the Hope House, which was a residential, next door was a residential drug treatment center, but the Hope House was an outpatient drug treatment center. And man, it was nothing. It was a big red house in the middle of Alliance that anybody could come through the doors any time of day. Mm-hmm. And it would be people there cooking. You know, my dad would have Bible study there on Tuesday afternoons. And man, when I tell you, it would be people sitting on the steps and sitting on the porch, and he would have the windows open so people could hear. Like, it was just this big house, and there might be 50 people there on a Tuesday afternoon just, you know, listening and talking about, you know, God and different things like that. So it was amazing to see something like that in a and have those memories in like a pre-social media age. Mm-hmm. But like when Hurricane Katrina hit, like my dad moved families from New Orleans to Alliance, so that they could have a place to kind of reestablish themselves. Mm-hmm. And man, so it was stuff like that, you know, I forget what year Katrina was, but I'm in my early mid 20s watching this, but not really knowing what I'm looking at until now, you know, at 40, whatever I am. 43, I can look back and be like, man, that was huge, you know? So yeah, man, that's my guy, man.
That's good. And so even with all of the community things that he does, and again, like, you do it with kids or early, you started with like young men trying to make sure, shape the lives of boys and like show them manhood early on. What similarities did you see in that? But then how did you take what you learned from early childhood, and how did you give that to young men going forward? So
man, the crazy part of that is I get asked this often. So my kind of passion is young men of color, because we know that a lot of our young men grow up in single parent homes. I did not grow up in a single parent home. My parents have been married for 46, 7 years at this point.
Congratulations.
Yeah, you know, and so I did not grow up in that dynamic. And so I'm actually kind of unaware of how
single parent households affect kids or how they move.
Yeah. You know, I see the outcomes of it at times, but I did not have that experience, man. I can say that even with having a 2-parent home and doing all the things that my parents did, you know, I guess in ministry wise, they were very, very present parents for me and my brother. And so it wasn't, I guess my passion and purpose was not born out of experience. It was born out of just what I saw and just, you know, coming back to Akron and just looking around and saying, I see a gap in this demographic. I see a gap in these behaviors, and what can I do to serve it?
Yeah. So what did you do to serve it?
Man, I started Dreams Academy, man. And so that was 2016, and kind of jumping back to the last question, I wish I could find it, and it would be dope if I can find it so you can like put it in the video. I forget the statement I made, but whatever I said is I found my purpose at 37, 38 years old. Like, you know, it was kind of reflecting on that conversation that we have about kids going off to college, and, you know, is 18 really the age that they should, you know, choose their life. You know, you got some kids that, hey, I know for a fact this is what I want to do. That didn't happen for me, man. At 17, I graduated high school at 17. My parents said, you know, my mother said, so what you about to do? Now I'm like, what you mean? You know, I'm a musician as well. And so at 17, I was making really good money for a 17-year-old. You know, I'm a church musician. So at 17, I was doing well, and I have always worked hard. So I had a job. I was a what they call it now, a sneakerhead back then. And so, man, I worked at the Athlete's Foot for years, all through high school. Then I played music at the church. And so I was making money at 17 legally that, man, a lot of kids just weren't making that kind of money. But my mom was like, so what you about to do, you know, with yourself? I said, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm working at the shoe store. I'm playing music at the church. I'm doing okay. She like, nah, you know, it's more to life than that. You either going to school or you're gonna get a job. Like, when she meant job, she meant you getting up, going somewhere 8 to 5, doing something. And I was like, yeah, not doing that. So I went to Mount Union, which is at the time Mount Union College, which is in Alliance, Ohio, which I made that choice just based on my familiarity with the city. You know, my dad got his church when I was 6. I spent almost every day of life down there. And so super familiar. And at that time, I wasn't one to take risk all like that. So I was like, oh, I'll go where I'm comfortable then. I knew the city. I knew the people. And so I said, well, if I get in Mount Union, that's where I'll go. I got in. Man, listen. I had zero intention of like being this academic. I'm going to class. I want to be on the dean's list person. That was not my goal. My goal was to get in and get my parents off my back, and that was it. And so I'll never forget. You know, this is 1998, and it was time to pick my major. And this is, you know, no Wi-Fi, none of that stuff yet. You know, we had to walk to the campus center to get on the computer and all that. And so at this time, you still chose your major through the book they gave you. And I just opened the book and I said, man, wherever this book lands is what I'm going to major in. And that's what I did. It landed on mass media communication, which was, at that time, only like radio, journalism. And it's funny, like, I look back now.
Or something.
TV
broadcast or something like that?
No, not even TV. Man. No, all radio, all journalism. Yeah, we weren't doing TV. But it's funny now, I remember having a conversation with someone who asked me, did my degree pay off? And I'm like, no. But now I'm doing a podcast, which is, you know, so similar. So, it's crazy how things just, you know, circle back or whatever. And so, yeah, man, I ended up in Mount, and very cool experience. I don't regret it, not one bit. Yeah, I got the whole student loan deal and, you know, all of that. The full experience.
Right. So talk about Dreams Academy.
Yeah.
How did it start? How did your love for everything post college, even once you in your career, like what was you talked about the need that you were seeing.
Yeah.
Tell us more about like how Dreams came about. What was it like starting out? Like was there any internal struggle? Like how did it start versus how is it flourishing right now?
So, just to kind of even go back, finish up at Mount, man, I've always been entrepreneur. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, man, I opened a clothing store. Remember, I was a sneakerhead. So, man, I opened a clothing store in Alliance. I'm not going to say it failed or flopped. I learned a lot. It did. It served its purpose for the time. Came back home to Akron. Got a job teaching in 2005. Like, man, sometimes I just do stuff on a whim. The day I got the job, I applied to start doing my master's. Like, hadn't even thought about, education. Like, literally, somebody called me and was like, hey, it's an opening at this school. You should apply. And I went and got the job immediately. Same day, applied, started my master's work at the University of Phoenix. Got my master's in 2007. Started teaching at Hoban in 2007. I was the first African-American music teacher there. I taught gospel choir at Hoban for 2 years,
nice.
Which is, so, you'll know this, Kim, I was Kim's teacher, Porter.
Okay.
Kim, Theo, Ty. I'm sorry, yo, we just kind of going down memory lane because we know all these people. I was their teacher at Hoban in the gospel choir. So a bunch of Yeepaw kids. But anyway, I got a job working in education after I taught for all those years. Got a job working in education, and it was a program that was designed to funnel inner city students into private colleges, right? And so I went to Mount, which is a private college. I did that job for about 8-9 years. Because I was still playing music, doing well. So I'm playing music. I'm working this job. I'm living life, man. I'm having a blast. I'm still not thinking purpose work yet, right?
Right.
I'm just, getting along to get along. Everything is good in the hood. And then somewhere around 2013, 14 is where my life or my thoughts in life started to shift. And it's like, okay, what am I doing? So the program I was working for, like I said, was to persuade, especially inner city black kids, that they can go to these private colleges, which are very expensive, which are very white, and the likelihood of these kids getting into these schools was slim.
Right.
And so, for my first maybe 7-8 years of doing this job, I wasn't even considering that thought. And something just clicked one day, and it was like, I don't feel good. I felt like I was lying to these kids, right? And I don't think we were lying because they had the intelligence to get in, but because of their situations, you had to have a certain ACT score, SAT score, certain income. There were just a lot of barriers that the likelihood of it just was not there.
Because of the way the system is designed.
And man,
some of these tests or these standardized tests are not in our favor. So
not in our favor.
The likelihood of all that and you passing that and then getting more scholarship to get in there is super difficult.
Super difficult. And then let's talk about it from the university aspect. The question became, does this campus really want this type of kid on their campus, right?
Or do we want this type of kid on our flyer?
Are we even prepared to deal with, and so this is a word that is still kind of fresh that we weren't using back then. Are we prepared to deal with the trauma this kid is going to come to campus with? The answer is no. Not at all. I know what I went through at the private school I went to. Let's say somewhere between a 2,000 to 2,300 student population, And at that time, only 70 black kids on campus out of 2,000. So if you were there, that means you had the grades to be there, you had the test scores to be there. Let's also keep in mind, even if you were an athlete, it's D3, so you didn't get there on like a huge scholarship, right? So I can easily say most of the black kids that I was in college with did not come from the hood, did not come from the inner city, and likely brought, if they did come to school with baggage, it was a different kind of baggage or trauma, right?
Right.
And so as I was working this job, I started to see these things, and I was just like, yeah, I don't feel good about this anymore. I didn't feel anything on the front end, but it was also like, now I'm at a place where I really want to do something that's uplifting, do something that's impactful. And then let me even say this, because the people I were working for, the people that I was working for, my boss, managers, were all white males. And what I did not have the freedom to do was explain to them that money is not a driver in our community. And so, you know, like when I say I wasn't thinking about purpose, I was paid well, I was getting to travel around the state. I was working from home before work from home was a thing. So I didn't have anybody on my back, you know, telling me to do this, do that. I was literally getting the opportunity to put this program together. But when I got to this stage, it was like, hey, you know, we're going into these schools and we're telling these kids what they can do, but we're leaving a lot out, and I don't enjoy that. And so it got to a point where, like, yeah, we were a nonprofit that was doing really, really well, but I didn't have the freedom to say, but this is not going to, like, you can't throw money at these communities and think that's a driver, because it's not. And so that is when I kind of started feeling the tension, and that tension just kind of said, and I said to myself, okay, you know, I got to have a job. I'm going to just kind of ride this until the wheels fall off. And that's exactly what happened. The wheels fell off. And when the wheels fell off, and I'm going to tell you when the wheels fell off, because we're supposed to be talking about Dreams Academy. The wheels fell off because I'm working in an academic school year, right? Because we're going in and out of schools, and so I had summers off. The wheels fell off 2016 when it was time, you know, for summer break. And I said, I want to start. That's when I had this, literally sitting on the corner of South Street and Wolf Ledges, sitting at a light, and I heard guys say, what are you waiting on? I had the Dreams Academy logo made for years and all that, because my end goal, and I skipped something. What I skipped was I had also enrolled in school to obtain my doctoral degree. So I'm working on that. My thought at that time was, when I get that, I'll open a school. So I got the logo and everything. I had no intention of starting, quote unquote, a program or organization. But literally 2016, you know, it was like, what you waiting on? I was like, oh, that was in March of 2016, man. And it was like, let me get to work. And so that year, we started out in my grandmother's storefront church, which was like a room this size of what we sitting in now. And man, we turned that little church into a gym, a cafeteria, a theater, man, everything you could think of. And I literally intended just to do that summer, because I thought I had a job.
Yeah.
And then I learned in August, you know, after a successful program, we had 11 guys, you know, no AC, no air. We met every Monday. We teaching them to tie ties. I'm calling all my buddies, you know, let's talk about career. Let's do this. I had no curriculum. I didn't have anything, man. I put it together and said, I'm calling on all my people to come, you know, literally and figuratively put your arms around these kids, these young men. And I didn't even, it wasn't to say, come to Dreams Academy if dad don't live in your house. However, it was to say, I know that's a gap in our community, and I don't want to be summer school. If anything, I want to be life school. Help us teach these young men how to tie a tie, how to shake a hand, how to make eye contact, how to think about learning how to change a tire and change car oil and being an electrician and managing their money, all life skills. And man, we did it for a summer, and yeah, so I did all that good only to get called into a meeting in August to tell me I got fired.
I was about to say, I want to hear about the wheels falling off and the moment of God saying like, hey, let's do this.
Oh man, I'll never forget that. Like I said, I was sitting at, if you know where the old Greyhound station was, I was sitting at that light, Greyhound and BP. And I lived around the corner at that time, and I was sitting at that light, and I just, man, literally one of the few times I feel like I've heard God's voice. And it was like, what you waiting on? And I remember I went straight. I mean, I was heading home anyway, but like I pulled my laptop out like, yo, it's time to get to work. And I knew it was the right thing to do when, not that I needed the confirmation. I knew what I was supposed to be doing. But I'll never forget that same month, I called Lamar, which is Lamar is our billboard company. And I called Lamar, and I was calling. I didn't have no money. I was putting all my own money behind it. And I said, I called Lamar and said, hey, I'm putting this program together, and I'm just, inquiring about what it costs to get a billboard. Man, this lady, prices was crazy. And then she said, well, wait a minute. She said, what are you doing? And I told her, and I'll never forget, she said, give me about a half hour, I'm gonna call you back. I said, cool. And she called back, and she said, hey, I went and talked to my boss. I really love what you're doing. We need it in our community. We're going to give you these 3 billboards. Now I'm gonna tell you the corners. It was a billboard at Copley and Collier, right where Charlie's Ribs was. I know if y'all listening, y'all don't live here. Y'all like, what does this mean? But just believe that
it's a good spot.
Listen,
right in the epicenter of like where the need is.
Oh, let me keep going. Copley and Collier, Talmadge and Britton.
Okay, that's also just good real estate. That's a good spot.
And Market and Arlington.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Dude. And I was sworn to secrecy as to what they charged me, but they gave me those 3 billboards for a month for little of nothing. And I just, this was before I met a kid. This was before our doors even opened, man. And so after that happened, I was like, oh yeah, let's go.
It's all God.
It's all God, man. And so from the moment I announced what we were doing on Facebook, my boss at the time, to this day, has never spoke to me again. And even when I was let go, he sent others to deliver the message.
Because that's what I wondered about that transition between you not saying it, but saying it, of like, hey, this nonprofit is, I understand the mission of it, but this ain't gonna work.
Right.
Y'all just throwing dollars at this, ain't gonna work. And then you seeing the need then in the community. Not only like, oh, what did you see that didn't work there that will work with what you were building, but like also that life transition of like, okay, I gotta, I'm gonna ride this till the wheels fall off, but also like, oh, the wheels are off.
Oh yeah. And the wheels have been off for a while. It was just a matter of what was going to shake it up to really say, okay, man, it's time to make a move. You know what I'm saying? Because I was leaning on my income because I was making good money. But the writing was definitely on the wall. As man, I think this is probably, anybody might agree with this. When you somewhere and it's just time, you know what I mean? And so I had known the signs were there. They wouldn't make a move. I wouldn't make a move. And so, man, it took that happening for anybody to make a move. And so now we got a good reason to make a move, because it's not like Brandon didn't do anything wrong and we actually like him and we get along and everybody's, working together fine. There was nothing like that to come up with a reason to part ways, but we needed a reason to part ways, and that was it, man. Right. And greatest thing ever happened to me, man. So, and no hard feelings either. And that's how I know it wasn't one of those types of things, you know what I'm saying? Actually, Funny story, the guy that fired me has been to Dreams Academy to teach because he's a phenomenal guy. And there was never any hard feelings with him. But, you know, a little weird because it's like, man, you fired me. But, man, we were able to reconnect, and I brought him back to town to talk with my guys. And you know, man, everybody, the cool part is everybody, with the exception of my boss at the time, and no hard feelings toward him either. But many of the people that I was connected with through that job have been to Dreams Academy or Queens Academy in some sort of capacity to do something because they believed in it as well. And so, man, you know, most things are in divine order.
Right. Absolutely. So, since you left, and then as soon as you started Dreams Academy, let's talk about like all of the positive things that came from Dreams. What were y'all doing? What were y'all teaching these young men? What was the growth process like? What were you feeling going through it?
So the growth process actually started when I got fired because, you know, like I said, I started that summer just to be a summer program. Right. I didn't start out talking about I want to be a nonprofit and a 501c3 and all this stuff. Man, we didn't have a bank account. I wasn't nowhere near there. I just wanted to do something to help, because in my head, when I started it in March, you know, to get ready to launch in June, I'm going back to work in September. Well, not going back to work. And so, man, the funny part is, and I remember it like it was yesterday, when we were done that summer, some of my parents was like, okay, so what's next? I was like, you know, I don't know. And they was like, well, you ain't got no job. Let's keep going. And so, man, summer, you know, and we still operate in how we did then. And so, man, we operate in spring, summer, fall in 8-week increments. And so we picked up right where we left off, man. We took a couple weeks off. Come that fall, we started over right back at my grandma's church. More guys. And so now we got some momentum pushing at 2017. At the time, House of the Lord had just built a brand new youth center. And so my guy, great friend of mine, Dennis Butts, calls and said, hey, man, you need to come look at this. Beautiful place. And 8 years later, we're still there. And so summer of 2017, we moved the guys to the House of the Lord Youth Center, which is all bright and colorful. And, you know, shout out to my grandma for allowing us to start at the church. But then shout out to Dennis and Bishop and Pastor Matherson and everybody that has allowed us to be at the House of the Lord, minus COVID. We've been there ever since. And, man, so that's home for the guys. And so the growth has been there, man. It's just grown across the city, grown to where we were able to get a 3-year $100,000 grant from the city to continue our work, which is a piece of the nonviolence, the youth nonviolence push here in Akron. And so we were one of 10, I believe, organizations that were blessed to get that first round of money. And so, man, it's just been up. It's been up the whole time, man. It's just been up. And so 2021, we started Queens Academy.
Just about to ask you about it.
Yeah, man. So now we out here with the girls who show out and try and embarrass my guys, man, because the girls, man, they just fill up every time and they bring their friends with them. And it's just, man, it's a joy to watch. And then we literally just started something called The Village here 2 months ago, which is a community for single moms raising young boys under 18.
That's good.
And so, man, we just hired a community engagement coordinator to run that, and their first event is coming up. So, man, it's been up, man. It's just it's been a joyous ride. Like I have zero complaints.
Good, yeah. And honestly, if anybody listening, like, this is just not, it goes without saying, oh, this is a solid program in the city. Not just that, but it is known. Like, I remember when I first heard about doing Dreams Academy, of like, hey, can you come do some photos or some videos around for, I think y'all year-end program. Okay, cool. Like, at first just being a normal gig, but really walking in, seeing the impact that y'all were making was powerful. Seeing how not just the kids, but also the parents of these young men was like powerful. Seeing the mentors show up in a real way, like, because it's really hard to get black men around for something that, one, they ain't getting paid for,
right?
But two, like them just being in a place and being hands on with kids. Hard to get that out there, but it was going and it looked beautiful. All of that. So I also want you to speak to. You talked about like what they learned there, but even from Dreams and Queens Academy, what's been like the success stories you've heard? What have you heard from the kids? What have you heard back from the parents? What have you heard anything like crazy that the kids have gone on to do?
Success stories, man. For me, people always ask like that question, and they want data. So like that's part of one of the things that like irks my nerves about like nonprofit work, because they want data, and I'm like, I'm not in this for data. I need to change lives, and I don't know what the numeric value on impact is, but for me to get a phone call at 7 a.m. and say, hey, I need to talk to you about my kid. This is what we're going through. For me to be, for us to be trusted in a space where very hard conversations take place. I can't put that on paper in the sense of this is what success looks like from a data standpoint. The fact that kids keep coming back, one for instance, man, I had a little guy just this last session, showed up, did not talk, period. And man, by the end of the session, when I tell you he became like the leader of the group. And so it's us getting to watch these young men and women transform into or even begin to transform into who they will become as a result of what we do, is the impact for me. To have parents keep believing in what we do. And one thing I'm very intentional about is saying thank you to my parents. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for trusting us with your kid, because that's a lot, man. That's a lot with all of the crazy stuff that's happening in the world. To have the trust of not only the parent, but to even gain the trust of a child, man, is a huge thing. And it takes work and it takes consistency. And so for me, I could give you data. Our kids don't get suspended, but they do get suspended, but they get suspended at a lesser rate if they come to Dreams. All those types of data marks, all that stuff is fine. But for me to have a parent, every time I get a text message from a parent, I save it that, hey, my son's behavior at home is different. Like, so whatever you did there, keep doing it, because now he's making his bed. Now he's saying, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Now he's being more respectful. He's not perfect, but he's better. That's the impact for me, man. Those are the messages that I live for. And even to hear a kid say, hey, I was skeptical at first, because especially with my boys, typically the boys are made to come the first time. Second time it's a choice. They're like, yes, I want to go back. I want to go see who I met. So when I hear about they're having their birthday parties and they're inviting all the rest of the kids from the group that they just met, because now they're friends, but they go to school on different sides of town, but they've made these lifelong connections possibly, and made friends and created family, man, that's the impact for me.
Yeah. And same thing on Queens. I remember during the Queens episode that we shot, y'all were talking about like the girls that would come in super to themselves, or they would be looking around like, all right, how long is this gonna last?
It's harder to crack them, man. With the boys, you can crack them with food and sports, jokes and games. The girls, they looking around. Ooh, I seen her at school and I don't like her. So it's an immediate whatever that feeling is. But I trust my leaders, man. I trust my staff, who are great at breaking those walls and barriers down through the various activities they do, the various dialogues and conversations that they have. And so, I go to Queen's Academy and say, hey, y'all, and then I'm out. Because, man, I laugh about it. Man, I walked in one time, they all was in tears about something. And so I said, you know what? I catch y'all next week. This ain't my, it ain't my lane. I want to provide the vision and the service and empower even my staff to, man, one of my cousins is on my team, man. And so it's a dope feeling to say I created something that now one of my family members can live out a piece of her purpose in a different way that had I not done this, she may not be in this lane. Like, I would guarantee if she was sitting here and I asked her, hey, did you ever see yourself as a mentor? No. But here I am, and she's been with me since day one.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. So you still, while you're still seeing everything, while you're seeing transition and transformation through these kids, even though everything is going good, you were like, all right, cool. Now I want to start a podcast. And now I want to help people. Tell me what the vision, because I can say it even though we've had so many conversations, but tell the people, what was the vision behind Dear White Teacher? Why did you want to create it?
So in part, my background is also education. I got my master's in education. I've taught, and I think I've taught elementary, middle, high school, college professor, and then now in this business owner / mentor, still educating, but in a different way. And so one, I get to hear the stories that our kids tell us. Two, not only is Dreams Academy, this is part of growth, but not only are we our own independent program, we also work inside schools where we are able to be inside the school day, doing what we do, for a captive audience, right? So not only do I hear the stories, I get to have the conversations with kids. So the vision behind this was really, how do I mesh all of this together? I got the helping the kids side down. So how do I hit on this side and empower teachers to do the same in a sense? The reality is, if you look it up, you're going to hear all different numbers, but 90%, 87, 90% of all teachers in America are white. The likelihood of a black student seeing a black teacher from kindergarten to high school is slim. It's slimmer than seeing a white teacher, whatever data you want to look up, right? So what I do know is, and especially let's talk about since the pandemic, diversity, equity, and inclusion has become a huge buzzword, right? I don't think of this as a DEI work. It is, but for me, it's impact again. The theme and purpose of my life is how do I walk in a room and leave knowing I made an impact in that space. So my thought was, how do I begin to have conversations with white teachers? And this was my initial thought, who are working in urban school systems, who have questions, thoughts, ideas about black students, but may not have one, anybody to ask, or two, may be scared to ask, right? Then where I had to switch up a bit was one of the calls I got to facilitate a session was at a very prestigious white school that had a very small population of black kids, but said, hey, we have them here and we face challenges dealing with them. So that school was kind of a microcosm of my college. 2,000 kids, 50 black kids. So then that's kind of when I had to change my thinking a little bit, or the vision, where I'm just thinking, it's not just white teachers in urban districts that may have questions. It's white teachers in suburban districts that still have to interact with black kids, that still don't know answers to certain things that I think if they had the answers, if they had the understanding, would create greater success in their relationships and in their classrooms.
How do you think, and you kind of said it, talk about the connection between the two, between Dear White Teacher and you trying to connect to the teacher that has the black student in it, whether it's suburban or in the city. But like, you went from talking to the young black man or the young black woman in the class to now you're talking to the teacher.
So, and so I try when I talk, I try not to speak in like generalities, right? Because everything does not apply to everybody. Whether we are in the urban context or the suburban context, there's a high likelihood that we are dealing with trauma, right? Mm-hmm. And one of my theories, even in the vision and the foundation of Dear White Teacher, is college is not teaching teachers some of the relational aspects of teaching, right? Teaching you how to teach. I can teach you how to teach math. I can teach you how to teach English and reading. I'm not spending a lot of time teaching what to do when little buddy comes in and he doesn't want to be here, or he keeps putting his head down because he didn't get any sleep last night because there were gunshots going all night, or he's cranky because he didn't get to eat breakfast because they didn't have breakfast. Versus what might be the suburban challenge, it may not look like that. It may not, they got to eat breakfast, but let's talk about the challenge of being the minority in a very white environment. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the challenge of not feeling like my voice is heard because we are the minority, and even though I'm speaking out, nothing changes when I speak out. So the challenge is still a challenge, but it could be a different challenge depending on which environment you are in. And so that's where I had to figure out, how do I speak to both? Mm-hmm. So I'll never forget, but one of the most one of the highlights of doing this work has been when I facilitated at the suburban school. I had 2 classes. I created my curriculum for the day. I got my hand out. I'm going in hype, you know what I mean? And my first class had about 8 teachers in it. They let me go through my slideshow. We had a decent conversation. It was very low key, right? Mm-hmm. They leave. The second group of teachers comes in, and it's like 25 of them. I introduce myself, and I'm about to get started teaching and going. And one of the guys says, "Sir, I am positive you put time into whatever it is you're about to tell us. We just have questions." And so I was able to make light of that because it was just me. And when I think that group, it was 20, if it was 25 teachers, 24 of them were white. Mm-hmm. We laughed about it, and I said, well, let's go. Mm-hmm. I never made it to the slideshow. I never even made it to the presentation because, and this may be, where we're headed. One of the things that I want to do and have done with Dear White Teacher, I don't want to go lecture anybody. I don't think that's always the most effective way. Let's have conversations. Let's dialogue. Let's go back and forth. Let's be uncomfortable. Let's create some tension, right? Because these conversations aren't comfortable. Talking about race is not comfortable. Mm-hmm. Talking about trauma is not comfortable. Mm-hmm. Talking about what you are afraid of or what you are afraid of because you don't know or don't understand it is not comfortable. I want to make you uncomfortable. Make me uncomfortable. So yeah, I've been in situations where somebody has asked me a question. Hey, I don't know the answer to that, and it's not comfortable. Mm-hmm. But I think that's where change comes, and I think that's where you get to hear different ideas and perspectives. And so, man, that was a cool experience for me because it's, I think a lot of teachers dislike professional development days because it's just this expert who's doctor this and doctor that coming in to talk at you. And yeah, we get to have a 5 to 10 minute breakout session. Then all of a sudden we're back in it and we're listening to this person and their thoughts and ideas. And I'm not 1,000% sure that's the most effective. I want to come have a conversation with you. Let's get in a circle and talk about this. Let's work through scenarios about the different ways we can find solutions to the same problems. And so, yeah, that's been my goal with it. And yeah, man, that's where I'm at with it. Like, I think that was a very cool session for me because it was free of the being boxed into a slideshow and a PowerPoint. You know,
a normal stuffy conversation.
Yeah, it wasn't that at all. It wasn't that at all, man. I remember one of the teachers, you know, young girl who I never would have saw this coming. She said, "Hey, I have a black son. I just need to know where to take him to get a haircut." I was like, wow. I said, "Hey, here's where I go get a haircut at. You're more than welcome. Tell him I sent you." Matter of fact, tell him your first cut on me. Go see him, please. But this was in a school year where, one, she has black students. Two, she had black peers in administration and teaching around her. She never asked anybody, "Where can I take my son to get a haircut?"
You made the space literally so safe for anybody to ask questions. They got down to such a personal, hey, I just need to get my son a haircut.
Safe spaces, man. And one of the things I live on is you don't create safe spaces by just saying this is a safe space.
Right.
And that's for kids too. Like I hear teachers all the time, "Oh, you can talk to me. This is a safe space." No, I don't think so. Kid, a black child, we don't trust easily. Forget black children, black folks don't trust easily, right? So you just can't tell me. You have to show me. You have to be consistent. You have to prove to me that this is a safe space.
Man.
So I'll never forget, man. I know I'm rambling now, but it feels good because I'm telling these stories. But no, like literally in a session, and I was able to do this because it was far, far away and I was out the state. The way I created a safe space was when I got up, I said, "Hey, I'm Brandon. We need to talk about safe spaces, and this is a way I'm trying something different. Let me share something very personal with you about my family." And I told something that I would never let get out in the city. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not a secret, but it was, hey, let me share myself with you so you understand the depths I'm willing to go to make sure that you feel safe and that I'm able to make sure that you can say what's on your mind and heart without judgment, whether that's privately or publicly. But hey, I'm gonna share something that literally brought me to tears because it's a heavy situation, but that was so cool for me, and that just opened the floodgates of so much that was able to come out, and we definitely left the room with greater understanding.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that's actually really beautiful. I think about that a lot of when people are like, "All right, Hayes, safe space." And it's like, no, it's not. Until there's a moment that you can feel it.
Yeah.
That you know it beyond just like hearing it.
Yeah. Because 9 times out of 10, like if a teacher is saying to a student, "Hey, you can talk to me. This is a safe space." Something has happened where you feel like you need to have a dialogue. They're in trouble. They just did something that they don't have any business doing. You know, one instance I talk about a lot is a friend of mine told me a story about how a kid stole some pop out of a teacher's refrigerator. He denies it to this day. He's on camera, right? So they got him doing it. But once he got in a space with a person he was safe with, he was able to share, "Hey, that pop is my mom's favorite pop, but we don't have a lot of money." So he wasn't stealing it to be a thief. He wasn't stealing it to be bad. He took the pop home to make his mom happy. And so it's like, it's a lot to discuss to get to those spaces of understanding and dialogue to understand why some of our kids act out on some of the things that they do. They're not being bad. They're not being disrespectful. A lot of times they're acting out of their backgrounds, their trauma,
right.
The chaos in their life. And I don't think that's not a college course.
Right. And it's not a college course. And because of that, if you never went through that, if you don't know anybody who went through that, you're not gonna be able to recognize.
You're oblivious.
Maybe not even empathize or sympathize on a simple level of just, okay, I get it. You're just stuck wondering. There's a soda gone.
There's a soda gone.
Where is this?
There's a soda gone. I got you on tape. You're going to the principal's office to face the punishment for doing what you did. And a lot of times our kids get punished and there's no dialogue about what was behind, what were you thinking? What was behind you doing that? And sometimes it's so far deep rooted in something else that we never get to. And so, man, even talking in this age of where mental health is such a priority, and I mean, not just for adults, not just for high school students, college students, but man, it's a conversation to be had with the mental, the emotional, all the health of our kids. And man, the classroom is where most kids spend the most of their childhood outside of at home is in the classroom.
Right.
And so you're with this person, like just think about the course of a year. I mean, think about it in a job aspect kind of, right? If the teacher is working 50, 60 hours a week, this kid is with you 40 of them. I'm in school 8 to 3, 8 to 4. I want to feel safe, but I don't know you like that. And we haven't made that connection for me to feel safe. And so, man, it's so much to it that when I think about why I do this and why I want to continue doing it, you can't learn this stuff in college.
Right. Yeah. Man. Yeah, I think about I heard this quote. They were kind of talking more about like the learning styles of kids, of adults themselves don't want to just sit and learn or sit and be lectured at and sit for hours on day. So why would kids?
Oh, man.
And then they talk, but hearing you say that also makes me think of, if we as adults, one, already know what a safe space is, know what a safe space is not. If we as adults know, when I know I had a rough day or something crazy happened in my personal life, how I respond in a work mode, or how I respond even to my friends, how much more does a kid who doesn't have a fully formed brain yet, a kid who doesn't have strong emotional intelligence or strong vocabulary to communicate their emotional intelligence, like how much more are they going to even, one, trust a teacher to say what's going on,
right?
But how much more then does that teacher have to reach out? How much more does that teacher have to create a relationship and a connection early? Which is really why I'm saying this publicly as well, why I think what you're doing is so important, why this platform is so powerful and so impactful. Because again, if they are spending the majority of their times in school, and the majority of black kids are taught by white teachers, the white teachers the teachers have to know how to build connections, know about behind the scenes things, know about the quote unquote culture that these kids are living in. No pun intended. But like, so all of these extra things that are not college courses that they get taught to teach English. They get taught to teach math. They don't get taught, and maybe get classroom management. Maybe. But they don't get like, hey, they have not had a bad haircut, so they are going to fight with you about wearing a hoodie.
Oh, listen. And that's a real thing. Listen, I will cancel a podcast shoot if my hair ain't cut. I am not coming. Shooting today. I said, hey, you said 4:00? I said, nope. My haircut is at 2.
And we know how that goes.
It's important. It matters. Like, so if you don't understand the culture behind why does having a haircut, or even worse for young ladies, hair done. No, I'm not going to school and my hair's not done. But let's also talk about the effects of those things not being taken care of. Bullying, insecurities. So it's deeper than, now my thing is just, I want to be polished at this point. Like, you know what I'm saying? So if I'm going to be on camera, I want my hair cut. If we're talking about you're in the 5th grade you know, you have to understand from a cultural aspect what roasting is. Roasting is not necessarily bullying, but talking to the wrong kid who has been bullied. Roasting is bullying, right? So if he comes to
objective statements at the wrong time to the wrong kid,
at the wrong time at the wrong kid, and so this is why you see teachers. This is why you see kids gravitating towards maybe black teachers who they can go in their room and their teachers can put their hair in a ponytail for them. You just don't know sometimes what you're looking at from an outside lens. And so, yes, that empathy matters. The ability to even have a lens to say, I understand why they are feeling how they felt. Even, you know, appearance, unfortunately, is something that matters. You can't come to school with cheap tennis shoes because somebody going to talk about you because for whatever reason, even though little buddy doesn't get good grades, he has Jordans on that cost $200. I'm not saying it's right, but there's a level of understanding we have to have in our classrooms to work through those things. And so, yeah, man, it's so many things that matter. I would bet a lot of money nobody or very few college campuses are having conversations about the effects of a bad hair day on a black kid in the classroom.
Or somebody.
If my hair is not cut, I'm not learning nothing. And you telling me to take my hoodie off when I know my hair looks crazy, and even though some of these guys are my friends, they are going to talk about me. So I'm not taking my hoodie off, and I will deal with the consequences of the hoodie staying on before I deal with the consequences of their jokes.
Yep. What's crazy is, this is super off script too. What's crazy is, I remember not in school, but at EPAW, at a summer camp, a performing arts summer camp, we were in a photography class. And it was a girl who was kind of getting picked on, getting bullied. And it was interesting. You mentioned roasting. If this story too crazy, I'll take it out. But she was kind of getting bullied, and like they were just making jokes at her. And then everybody in this photography class broke out. I'm walking with the group, and I was like, "Why are y'all baking her?" And she like, you can see she's quiet, she's shy. Her physically, like she don't even what's the word, pop out. I don't know the right term. No, but she's like, she's real to herself. Her stature is small. Until it was like, hey, if y'all keep baking her, like we gonna have to bake. And knowing how to navigate that line without really hurting their feelings, but still like, hey, this is how you made her feel. And you gotta, and trying to get them to understand if this is how she feels, like, do you now empathize with her? Like, if you, and not in everybody needs to start baking kids type of way, but in an understanding of empathy of like, this is how you can't make another person, you shouldn't be making another person feel like this. But knowing how to properly tote that line in relationship of saying, I'm cool with you and cool enough that we can bake back, I can roast back, but also we not gonna make her feel no type of way either.
And so, no, you can leave that story in, but I just want to explain, baking and roasting means telling jokes about whatever it is about that person, you know. But there's also that fine line of what we culturally know as baking, roasting, telling jokes versus bullying. And so I won't minimize or invalidate that bullying is definitely an issue. It happens. But there are also things that cause for it to happen, such as, hey, my family's poor. We don't have it like that. And it's unfortunate that it happens. But, empathy is not always expressed, not only at an adult level, but at a child level. And then do we even expect for 3rd and 4th grade kids who have been living in, one thing I'll say is, my thought is that it is sometimes unfortunate the level of materialism our kids know by a very young age. why are we talking about financial status? And you in second grade and can't count to 50 yet,
right?
But you know how much your Jordans cost, and you are superior because you have them to this kid who doesn't.
Right.
And so that's a very unfortunate yet realistic reality.
Right. So even with you creating this platform to talk to teachers in hopes of building relationships and trying to figure out how to help them connect, or helping them figure out how to connect with their students, what has been some of the positive feedbacks? What's been some of the negative feedbacks that you've got?
Let me start with the negative, man, because this was the one that like I'll never forget. And I made a post on Instagram, but I don't even remember what post it was. And you know, Instagram, social media is always clips. And so you're never probably getting the totality of what the conversation, the actual happening really was. And a person came at me and said, well, it sounds like I'm apologizing for the behaviors of our black kids. And I said, well, one, please don't just look at this clip. Go watch the whole entire show or listen to it. I'm not apologizing. I'm being very realistic about what is happening in our classrooms with our teachers, with our kids. And so I'll never apologize for who we are. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to help white teachers understand who we are, mm-hmm. to create higher levels of success for them and their students. You know, I don't know that a failing student makes a successful teacher, or, you know, vice versa. You know, is every kid gonna get it? No. But what can I do to help a white teacher understand from a relational standpoint that if they can build a relationship with a student, that all the more makes the kid want to learn.
Right. I
want to come to your classroom. I like you. Guess why I like you? Because you are yourself. So one of the biggest things I talk about is just be yourself. Mm-hmm. Don't try. You don't have to listen to rap music to be a good teacher. Mm-hmm. You don't have to know. I can't even call names now because I'm out of the loop with these rappers and mm-hmm. the music and all this mm-hmm. stuff now. But you don't, you know, and that's one of the things I play with my kids about. And I say, so who's the hot rapper now? And they get to saying names, and I'll be like, who?
No, who?
I don't know these people because I don't listen. Yeah, what is that? I don't know what that is. So they told me what NBA Youngboy is. I said, what is that? Mm-hmm. Makes no sense to me. The NBA is basketball as far as I'm concerned. Why is that his name? But we can laugh, like, yeah. That's me being myself with them because I really don't know. Mm-hmm. And so that those are the moments that you really get to be you. Right. And so that was that might be the only negative that I could think of, because I'll never forget that one. It was just like, man, watch the show, you know, yeah. And then don't come at me in the comments right. like that. Right. Let's talk about it. Right. Because, you know, I'm not trying to be a sellout. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to move in a lane that I think, you know, I'll go as far as to say this. If I'm a white teacher and let's say my principal at my school is black, right? They have a million things to do to run that school. Mm-hmm. And it's not that they don't want to teach you or talk with you about cultural differences or cultural nuances. They don't have time. Mm-hmm. So that's the black principal, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have the white teacher that says there are some that are very cool with how they move, right? But then there are others that are saying, hey, I really want to understand this. I'm scared to ask these questions. I don't want to be offensive. When a lot of times it's probably not offensive, but if you don't know that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not an expert on this, but do I want to be the guy you can call and say, hey, I had this going in my classroom and I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then if we need to pull in more people that you work with, or, you know what I mean? And I know there are some schools that probably do very well at that. And there are others. I mean, let's be realistic. Classroom sizes are growing out of control. So teachers are having upwards of 20 kids in their room. That means you have upwards of 20 different learning styles. That means you have upwards of 20 different relationships to try and navigate. That is a lot for one person.
And that's not even talking about grading or things like normal, just teaching the actual subject.
Listen, it's not even talking about I'm the teacher and I have to deal with these 20, 30 students and I'm going through a divorce.
Man.
My own kids are acting up. I'm taking care of my elderly parents. Like it's a level of grace that we have to give everybody.
Right.
And so whether it's ignorance, and I use the word ignorance to say in the sense of you just don't know what you don't know. I'm not calling you ignorant. You just don't know.
Right.
Let's be honest about what you just don't know and have a conversation about it. Let's provide the avenues to have those conversations in a quote unquote safe space to where you can take this knowledge and hopefully apply it. It's not a one-day turnaround, right? You know, I don't know if you can create a safe space with kids in one day, but you can be yourself. You can figure out what you have in common with a kid that has nothing to do with race, that has nothing to do with, well, it may have everything to do with your differences, but you use your differences to bridge that gap. Hey, I like country music. Let me introduce you to whoever's hot in country. Hey, you like Kobe? I like LeBron. Oh, Kobe wasn't that good? Here we go.
All right, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it after you do your work. Oh, let me finish this work because I want to talk about LeBron.
Right.
Did you see what Bronny did?
Right.
You know, it's stuff that, you know, you want to say it's simple, but it may not be for some. It is for others. Positive things that have come from this, man. I walked into school maybe just a month ago, was there for a totally different reason. And a white teacher walked up to me. She said, "You're Brandon." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Please don't stop what you're doing. I love the podcast." She said, "I share it with as many as I can." And this is what she also said. She said, "I'm surrounded by a lot of teachers who don't know that they are either racist or they have racist tendencies or sometimes use language that they shouldn't use." And this podcast is hopefully helping them to see, hey, you can't say this, you can't do this, stuff like that. And I was like, wow. And so I didn't know her. I got her name that day. I don't remember it. I'm sorry if you're listening, but thank you for that. But that means she had watched the YouTube or something because she knew my face, right? So that was an extremely dope moment for me to say, okay, I haven't got this to where I want it yet, but I'm on the right track, and this is a necessary. I had a teacher in Kentucky reach out the other day, like, "Hey, I love what you're doing. Please keep going. I love the podcast." And it's so helpful. And so, man, it's just stuff like that when I get these random confirming messages that, hey, you know, will this go worldwide or hit California? Man, I don't know. Just keep doing what I feel like I'm called to do in this space until I feel like it's not time to do it anymore. But man, at the end of the day, I just want to keep helping people, man, to not just help our kids, man, but just like I said, man, my purpose is to make an impact.
Right. Even from everything you just said, well, as much as we've been talking about the purpose of why it was created, who you made it to create, and everything that you've heard back from it, especially the positive stuff, and go fool with the negative.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But for you, what is something that either impacted you, or what's something that you even learned just from during the course of doing this? Like, has a guest even said anything that like has stuck with you or blew your mind, or like what's something that like got you that like still impacts you?
I think one that I can think of is, you know, we all come from, I think the joy in doing this is the beauty in where everybody comes from, right? And so most of our thoughts, foundations come from how we were raised, our backgrounds, our experiences. And so for me, it's almost fun when I encountered a teacher that comes from somewhere so different that says, I don't understand that. I don't understand why that should be done. I don't understand why they think like that, because it provides such a great learning opportunity. I'm not out to change their mind. If you leave thinking the same way you thought, that's cool. But to interact with people that are open to a different perspective, I think, man, in any walk of life, that's how you create synergy, or that's how you create likeness, you know. So one of the things I do in our sessions are these different scenarios, and so it's always cool to hear how people will handle a certain scenario, because it's based on their experience, it's based on their foundation, it's based on how they think. And so to hear, if I'm in a room with 15 teachers, to hear how they would go about this 7 different ways, and then to even hear the dissonance, you know what I mean? Yeah. And even if we don't agree with it, that's their way. It's not necessarily wrong, but they are doing what they know. So that's one thing that I always find interesting when I get to be in spaces. It's just, and instead of saying, well, why do you think like that? Or instead of, you know, jumping down their throat and saying, well, you're wrong, let's get underneath it and start with why. That's a great book, by the way. Start with Why. I think it's called, or Know Your Why. Simon Sinek. I read it. Don't quote me, but it's very, very good. But no, like it goes back to, I know why I started Dreams Academy. I know why I do Dear White Teacher. Tell me why you think this way. And if it's because, you know, it's interesting. Hey, my thoughts about Black students are the way they are because I went to an all-white high school, I went to an all-white college, and where I live, there are no Black people. I don't have any Black friends. So I just don't know. There's beauty in that, though. So how do we help you know? It's beauty in it when they're open to it.
Right.
You know, it's beauty in it when they want to know. It's beauty in it when, hey, I believe all of my kids are brilliant, but I'm missing this piece of understanding to why certain things happen. And so guess why? I haven't had relationships in the Black community to understand. And I don't even just mean the hood or urban stuff. I just haven't been around it. And so I'm not sure a lot of times that teachers even go into the profession thinking about the cultural nuances of that stuff. Hey, I just want to teach. One of my theories or thoughts is a lot of times teachers go into teaching. I'm speaking of like in the suburban context, because I'm gonna go to college. My mom was a teacher. My grandma was a teacher. Everybody's been a teacher, so I'm following in the family footsteps. I'm going back home to teach. Well, those jobs aren't readily available because mom and grandma are still teaching.
Right.
They don't want to retire yet.
Right.
So guess where I got to go? The urban school.
Yep.
And now I'm looking at a whole cast of characters that nobody told me about this.
Was not in the college curriculum.
Was not in the curriculum. You know, I did my student teaching in a school that looked like where I thought I'm going. You know, and so, yeah, man, that's. It's a beautiful mix up of a lot of stuff.
So in all of that, everything good that you've gotten back, everything that's how everything's been moving, and even how things have been impacting you. where do you see the expansion? Where do you see the next step? Where do you see it growing to?
Man, that's funny because we just got done saying, man, it's only 24 hours in a day. And, man, it's just never enough time. Man, I've literally seen, like, man, I've envisioned thousands of people, like, in a conference just to sit and talk about this kind of stuff. And I know there's conversations happening all over the country. But, man, just, you know, man, how do I get teachers to fly to Akron?
Right.
You know, to man, just kind of hash these conversations out I know we keep overusing it, in a safe space. You know, I mean, Akron is Akron. We ain't got no beach or nothing like that. We got one mall. You know, I can't promise you the greatest vacation space, but man, you know, how do I even start small and get, you know, teachers in a room for not a professional, yes, professional development, right? But not as we know it, not as somebody's just talking at you, but where you really get to share experiences and stories and really kind of pour out and be poured into to a place where not only do you leave empowered, but you're no longer afraid of, I think one of the fears is the fear of the unknown, right? Not only do I not know, but I'm terrified of trying to figure out, or I'm terrified to ask. You know, like I said earlier, I think a lot of the barriers are, I'm terrified to ask a question about something because I don't want to offend. And I think part of that on the other side has to be to not be so quickly offended by what someone doesn't know.
Right.
So, man, it back to grace, right? And you know when someone is intentionally trying to offend you, and you know when someone says something out of desire to learn that may be offensive. And that's where you have the grace and the opportunity for it to be a teachable moment to say, hey, I know what you're getting at. Let me walk you through how to articulate that in a way that's not offensive. That I think that's a large part of this work is offense, not being offended, you know, and just having these conversations with a lot of grace,
right,
and a lot of empathy.
Right.
Definitely empathy, and realizing that the numbers aren't going to change, at least for the majority, right? Black kids are always going to be in front of white teachers. So back to that comment. No, I'm not apologizing for our chaos and our trauma and our behavior.
Right.
But if somebody doesn't stop and say, hey, this is just the reality, and show all teachers. And so let me also point out, yes, this is called Dear White Teacher. Yes, there's often a disconnect between white teachers and black students. But yes, there's also a disconnect many times between black teachers and black students. So get from it, you know, what they say, eat the meat, spit out the bones.
Right.
Take from it what you can and let the rest be.
Right.
So yeah, man, that's that.
Yeah. There's so much, man. There's so much that we could say.
Oh yeah, man. It's huge, man. And then, like, you know, this will come out kind of on the beginning of like summer break. And so, like, I think that's a great time to, like, I know teachers want their break and they deserve it, well deserved, but that's also a good time to, like, you know, kind of dig in and self-reflect.
Right.
What can I do better? What can I do different? How can I learn this? How can I learn that? And like I'm really trying to put together avenues for that to happen in a safe way, in a respectful way. And so that, even in talking about offense, somebody's going to listen to this and be offended by something I said.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You talk long enough.
Yeah. Oh, man. You can't please everybody. And I'm very okay with that. So I'm very secure in what I'm trying to do. And in no way, shape, or form am I trying to be offensive about anything we're talking about. But race, culture, black, white, just even though those... Saying white teachers is making somebody cringe. Right. Saying black is making somebody feel away, right? But if we don't move past our feelings to get to the crux of something for the greater good, then we're going to be stuck in this cycle of I'm offended. That doesn't sound right. That's not politically correct.
Right.
We got to move past that and be willing to dig deeper and really figure this thing out.
Because even like you said, regardless of white or black teacher, man, this is just a good teaching resource.
Yep.
Because some black teachers can walk into a classroom filled with black kids or even like half black kids, but still not know how to connect. To the black kids or maybe to any kids. You're just here, hey, I'm teaching social studies today, period, point blank. But miss that, they don't have that cultural equity or that relational equity that holds with other students. So the connection's never made, which still makes the class harder to sit through. If you're a student or if you're a kid or you're an adult, it's just hard if you're a student of the class.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so important. The teaching of that side is very important. But even to
I was just gonna say, and please understand, I am not dismissing the lack of resources, the underpayment of teachers. I'm not dismissing any of those things that man, just the thing. I choose to believe that most teachers are there for purpose. There is a great population of teachers that got into the profession because they get the summer off, and it's maybe it was a decent wage when they started, right? There's a population of teachers who are not there for the student. That ain't my lane. That's not my lane, right? My lane is I choose to believe that there are teachers who will listen to this podcast or see the courses I create or encounter me even in person or get to talk with me, who really have the child whose purpose is really to be a positive impact on this child or this room full of kids who really want to do their best, who really want to understand and is willing to take the time to have those conversations, to read whatever books, to take whatever course, to figure out, okay, I'm self-aware enough to know I'm not connecting here. I'm not comfortable enough to ask the question, but I can listen to this and figure it out. Or I can listen to this and get an answer or an idea or a suggestion. That's what I'm aiming to do.
And most people, I also believe most people just want to be better at their craft. And even if you're a teacher and you're like, hey, I really want to be a good teacher, but I know I'm lacking on this side. Like you said, and just being, they'll be able to find, they want resources to be able to, just like if we wanted to be better at our craft or whatever we do individually outside of that, we would want to be better, just like a teacher wants to be better at teaching. So having a resource, having things like this podcast are really solid. But you are coming out with a whole big resource.
Yeah,
coming
man.
Out with the course.
Yeah, the course, man, is finally will be done by the time you're hearing this. So, dearwhiteteacher.com. And this is the thing about the course. The course is a safe space because you get to take it by yourself. Don't get no safer than that. But you can listen to it. I talk about relationships with parents, relationships with students. I talk about a bunch of things that I'm not even going to tell you all the rest because I want you to get it. And this is the thing. There's also a piece that the very first module is about self-awareness, is understanding who you are as a person. And it's a piece in there for you to kind of take a deep dive into having a conversation with yourself about some spaces you may be lacking in. And so it's three-tiered, or however you want to say it. It's three pieces to it. You get to have a conversation with yourself, and if you choose to have a conversation with your students, and then have a conversation with your peers, whether that's family, friends, whatever, and really talk about, hey, what do you see as my strengths? What do you see as my weaknesses? And take the information and then continue the rest of the course. So it talks about relationships with parents, relationships with students. It talks about the theme of survival that is in the Black community, right? So back to that, my little guy who stole the pop, he just wanted to make his mom happy, right? Or it talks about understanding at the core why certain things happen. And a large part of that is survival. The whole having my hoodie on, my hair ain't cut, I'm trying to survive. I don't want to be bullied today. It's all a survival tactic. And so understanding that so many kids are coming to school just trying to survive the day. They didn't sleep well. They may not. Man, one of the things that boggled my mind years back was I was working in the schools. This was before Dreams. And I talk about this in the course, where a friend of mine told me the hesitation to close schools on an inclement weather day is the reality that a bunch of kids won't eat because the only meal they get is when they come to school.
Right.
I was like, I had no idea. Like, that boggled my mind. And so it's realities like that a lot of our kids are living through. And so the course is only $97 on dearwhiteteacher.com. And since it's summer break, I'll do a summer discount code too. You know, I get you a little money off because I know teacher resources are what they are. Teachers pay is what it is, and I get it. And so, you know, it'll ask you for a discount code. Type in the word summer. So by the time you hear this, it will be live and available for you. So I hope that, you know, everything we talked about today is wrapped around impact. You know what I'm saying? So when you leave or get done watching the course and taking it and doing the different modules, it's not long. You're able to sit down with it, get you a glass of wine, take it module by module, however you kick back. And it's just me sharing my experiences, what I've seen, what I even learned as a student coming up. I talk about one of my favorite teachers who, man, I'll never forget, who was a white teacher, but the way she built relationships with all of us at a Black private school was she found ways to individually connect. And her way with me was music. Her husband was a musician. And, man, I got to go to her house. Man, I'll never forget that her husband's music studio was the first music studio I ever went in my life. I never forgot that. Right. And we loved her so much. She was our 4th grade teacher that we begged the school to let her be our 5th grade teacher, and they said yeah. And that's how memorable she was for me. And to this day, me and everybody that came up together with her, Ms. Roberts was it, man. You know, that was our girl. And so she was herself. She figured it out, man. Had a room full of Black kids. Now she may have had a little help because her husband Black.
Okay. Yeah.
So you know, she had a little help maybe, but you know, but she figured it out, man. And man, she was our fave to this day, man. We still talk about her. And I believe that's the impact many teachers want, that when their students get 40 and 45, they are still talking about, hey, I'll never forget Miss or Mr. such and such because they did this and they were that impactful in my life. And so grab the course, man. I don't think I know that is going to be impactful.
Truly. I often think about, even the story you said, I often think about how important representation is. Yeah. And how, especially when we just dive deep, whether you're a teacher in a community that doesn't have a lot of resources, but if you know you do, and you do something cool like that, like, okay, like look at a basement studio, or look at a real studio, like that's, or like let's go XY, like we can do so many things, and show kids like there's always a way to make a connection, man. There's always ways to build.
Dude, she when however she figured out that I could play the piano. So at my school, you know, if you went to the school, you sang in the Christmas program. You weren't given a choice. This ain't about whether you can sing or not. This is what you do. You're gonna get up and sing Christmas carols, right? She didn't make me sing, man. She let me play the piano with her husband. I've never forgotten that. So wait, I get to showcase. You put me on a platform to show the entire school and their parents my gift, because you found out and did the work to know that I even had the gift. And then you said, this is what I'm going to do for him. And it wasn't just for me. My whole class got to go over her crib, but I got exposed a little bit differently because of what her husband and I had in common, which she opened the door to let happen. Man, I'll never forget that, man.
And that's so small of like how normal teachers or things like people would normally like, hey, everybody singing, you singing, boom. But to be able to pick out, like, okay, you can play, you go ahead, and like
you go hang out with my husband.
Unique experience.
Yes,
you can do X, Y, or Z. You can have that unique experience. I'm not going to put everybody in a box, but that connection breeds like, if I can see the talent and the gift in you, let me speak to that, or let me pour into that. That way, that's again something that you'll never forget.
I've never forgotten that, man. And I had to be this had to be like 1991 or something. You know what I mean? However old you are in 4th and 5th grade, I don't know. We're talking 30 years ago at this point, 35 years. I've never forgotten that moment.
Yeah.
You know, and not only that those moments translated into the classroom. Because guess whose room I wasn't about to act up in? Ms. Roberts. Because now we got a relationship. I get to go over her house and play it in the studio? Oh, I don't act bad in here.
Nah, I'm not going to mess up my studio time.
No. I'm not. And so when you get to talking about behavior and incentives and relationships and all that stuff, man, you give a young man or a young lady the opportunity to showcase whatever their gift is. I think I saw this story. We'll wrap up somewhere in here. I don't know. We might keep going. I don't know. I saw this story though about, it was a little fella in the class, thought he was a comedian. Teacher said to him, hey, guess what? Go ahead, one joke. Got his joke off. Hey, you do this, I'll give you the floor. You know what I mean? Like, even if the jokes is corny, they terrible. But this young man feels, hey, I want to be the next Kevin Hart. I want to be the next, whoever he think is funny. But I get to practice on y'all. And all I got to do is act right and do my homework. Let me figure this out.
Bargain.
It's a bargain, man. Let me figure this out. Now you've created classroom success using these bargaining chips. Right. You know what I mean? Man, it's almost, when you start saying it out loud, it's strategy that you be like, man, that ain't even really strategic. You know, this ain't rocket science. But for some people it is, because guess what? They just don't know.
Right. And I think that's why the work is so important.
Yeah.
That's why the platform is important. That's why even with connection to what you do at Dreams Academy is important. But even there, again, while you are doing a really good work, impacting young men and women's lives, young kids, it's also important that the other people who will be impacting their lives are these teachers. And if the majority of them don't know, the majority of teachers are white, but the minority population on the planet is black people. But not only in the same stat, you know this stat, 1 in every 3 black men get sent to jail. But I just found out this new one. I think it was like 1 in every 5 kid has gotten suspended out of kindergarten.
I believe it.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
But knowing that, hey, maybe now this thing deserves a punishment. Maybe we need to find out deeper. Maybe we need to have a connection to be able to find out, hey, what was your what was going on in your head? What was going on? Because maybe this isn't suspension or detention worthy.
Yep.
Maybe we need to have a conversation about, hey, man, you good?
And that's why, going back to the course, that's why it's a whole segment on relationships with parents. Because just like you got to massage and navigate that relationship with the student, got to do the same thing with parents. What I ain't about to say is every parent is cooperative, because I know that's not a fact. However, it's the trust factor. It's the safe space factor. It's the communication factor. There's so many things that can be done. It's mutual. It has to go both ways. However, you know, I think this came up on a previous podcast. Dr. Ross, she talked about parent trauma. I was like, well, what's that? She said the parent went to the same school and dealt with some of the same teachers that's still there, and now their kid is there. And I was like, ugh, I ain't heard of that. But it makes sense.
Yep.
Oh, I remember you when I was coming up.
Yep.
Because guess what? Now, this is a reality in our community. I just left high school. I just left school however many years ago. So I ain't that far removed by the time you meet my kid.
Right.
Because I had a kid at an early age.
Right.
So yes, you're still there. And I didn't like you then.
And I don't like you
and
now.
I don't like you now.
So
you ain't
how
even
involved am I going to be?
You ain't even did nothing to me in 10, 15 years. But you still here, huh?
And even more than that, how much, if I didn't even like school, I didn't even like the teacher, but I didn't even like school, man. So how can I even help my kid?
How can I help my kid?
I don't want to, subconsciously, I don't want to deal with none of that.
And the kid sees the parent's attitude toward school and adopts it.
Bingo.
So now you're working against everybody. And then it becomes, okay, now how do I figure out how to navigate this? Because they don't like it here. They don't like me. What am I going to do?
Yep.
And that's where that whole self-awareness piece comes in. You know, we hope mom, dad matures into, okay, I ain't like you back then, but let me figure this out for the benefit of my child. You know, it's so many factors and nuances to all of it, man. I just want to provide some solutions and strategies to some of it, to try and provide, you know, maybe some not so out the box ideas, maybe some out the box ideas, but to say, you can be successful. You can be successful in navigating and having relationships with black kids. Some ain't gonna be that hard. Some might be challenging, but it can be done. And I think it ultimately heightens the success of both the teacher and the student.
Yep. All right. This is the last one.
All right, let's go.
Because this has been a good conversation.
It is, man. It's been fun, man.
But you always ask your guests to leave with a word of encouragement. So you wasn't ready for this.
I sure do. He using me against me.
So go ahead, look into your camera.
God, no.
Pick whichever one you want to look at, and think of what would you want to leave. Whether it's a parent, whether it's a teacher, whether it's an administrator. What's your word of encouragement? Or if you want to aim specifically at teachers, go ahead.
Man, word of encouragement. Man, it's one of them things where a lot of things come to mind, but it's like, what's a really good one? Word of encouragement. Here we go. I can show this to you too. It's in my phone. This year I did a theme for myself, and I wrote it on New Year's, and it said, "Do it scared." And so this for whoever listening: do it scared. Ask the question. Take the leap. Take the course. Do it scared, man. And I'm absolutely talking to myself, because I don't mind saying that the course should have been out, should have been done. Yeah, I'm busy, got a lot happening, but even in doing this work, there's a fear associated to it, right? Is there going to be pushback? Am I going to be called a sellout? Am I telling cultural secrets that I shouldn't tell? And I just have to be, hey, do it scared, man. So to my white teachers, to teachers, period, if there's a fear of seeking out information that ultimately is going to create a higher success for you and those kids, do it scared. Almost be willing to offend, not intentionally, but in a way that is open to dialogue, discussion, and learning. Do it scared, man. Yeah, I'm literally talking to myself and whoever. And at this point, whether you're a teacher, entrepreneur, whatever that thing is that you know deep down you want to know, seek out, do it scared. What you got to lose? At the end of the day, what I got to lose? You know, a lot of us are sitting on $1 million ideas and thoughts that could change not only our lives but the lives of the people that it will affect and impact. Do it scared, man. So that's it, man. You know, it's summertime. You know, take that trip so you can get back in the classroom refreshed and ready to go, man, and you know, help these kids. And that's all kids. You know, that's a whole nother piece. I am not. Yes, I my purpose in life is to help kids in my community who look like me, but I am an advocate for all youth and kids, and just people, period, man. Do it scared. Be the best you can be, at the risk of offense, and be willing to be open to new thoughts, new ideas. Learn scared, you know. Do it scared, learn scared. And man, one day you'll look back and be like, man, what was I scared of? Don't look back and regret, and look back like I was so scared that I didn't act on it. Mm-hmm. We only get one of these lives, man, especially as I get older. I'll be 44 this year, man. I got more days behind me than I got in front of me, you know. So, man, I'm grateful for every day. Do it scared.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. That's all the questions I got for you.
I don't really know how to wrap up my own show.
I was also like, I don't know how to wrap up your show.
Yeah, right. Hey, so I was today's guest. And man, I hope you enjoyed it. Hey, but let me say though that like this was like immensely like it was fun and enjoyable, but necessary, man. This felt really good to do, to really kind of get to talk out why I do what I do across a variety of levels and platforms. And so, man, I hope y'all enjoyed the show. I know it was a little longer than usual, but you know, I hope that something was said that that's the title of the show. Do it scared. That's it.
That's good.
That's good. That's it.
That's good.
So yeah, man, I hope something was said that helps you even better understand the vision, the plight, and what we trying to do, and share it with somebody. I really can't wait till this one drops. Like I think I might. I don't want to offend I said offend people. I don't want to offend none of my other guests, but I think I was the best guest I'd have had on. No, this was fun, man. This was cool, man. This was cool. So yeah, we gonna keep rolling, man. So man, hey, I love y'all signing off. This was extremely dope. Social media, follow us on Instagram, dear_white_teacher. And I promise I'm about to do better with that. Who you say?
Subscribe to the YouTube.
Subscribe to the YouTube. Watch this one. We in the studio just chilling, getting it done. Y'all heard dogs barking, cars rolling by, all kinds of stuff. But no, this was real cool. Same as Instagram, TikTok, dear_white_teacher. And hit the website, get the course. Can't wait to hear from you how you enjoyed it. And yeah, let's keep rolling and keep learning. Do it scared. Peace.